Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and I have a fantastic video for you today. Okay, so I've been talking about the Fed and interest rates and Bitcoin and how they affect Bitcoin. So I wanted to do an entire video on it and then give my thoughts about how things are going to, or how things might break down in the future. But first, what we need to talk about is the fact that the Fed has an impact on Bitcoin, okay? What we've seen lately is that the Fed has raised interest rates very rapidly, and it's caused a collapse in the Bitcoin price. And I'm actually going to show you that. What I have here is I have the entirety of Bitcoin, the entire Bitcoin chart, and then I've put together when the Fed has raised rates, and if they've raised rates quickly or if they've lowered rates, and then what that does to the price of Bitcoin. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So with Bitcoin, all right, the very first time the Fed started raising rates back in November of 15, it was a very gradual raise, okay? They went very, very slowly with this. We can actually take a look at that when we take a look at the Fed funds rate. And let me back it up here a little bit. So you have 2015. They started raising rates very slowly, okay, very slowly. You can see here, just creep up just a little bit, okay? And then once you get to November 2017, they increased very quickly, very, very rapidly. You have it going from 1.16% all the way up to 2.4% in February of 2019. So when we take a look at the charts here, the gradual raise basically corresponded with a raise in the Bitcoin price. And the reason for that is because the historical rates were already incredibly low. So the fact that they're raising it very gradually also put fuel on the fire, and it convinced investors to be a little bit more risky. Now, when they decided to rapidly start raising rates here in about November of 2017, that led to a very sharp decline from the Bitcoin price. It ran up, right? It ran up all the way up to in December that next month. But then after that next month, it plummeted after that point. So the Fed started raising rates. And usually what you see is there's kind of a delay in the market. And so that information was digested. Bitcoin sold off incredibly hard as investors went from being risk on to risk off. And it basically started the last bear market. So it went all the way from 20,000, right? And then it bottomed out at about 3,280 or so, in that range, roughly speaking. Okay. So this also coincides with the Fed that stopped raising rates. So when you got to that point, they're not exactly, but it's about a week or so in between the bear market bottom for Bitcoin and the Fed deciding to stop raising rates. Okay, because they had inflation under control. So what happened was the Fed stopped raising rates, and the market responded very positively. And even though we can zoom in a little bit, even though we can see that the Bitcoin went down from that point, it did not retest the bear market bottom. In fact, when the Fed started raising rates here at about July of 2019, this had a profound impact on Bitcoin. You saw it's just a small decline here, mostly sideways. The biggest issue here is the COVID panic kind of messes up the cycle a little bit. But generally, when the Fed decreases rates, it's positive for Bitcoin. So the only issue here is that the COVID panic came in, and it basically it brought the whole market back into a bear market, and so that's why it kind of dipped back down here. However, what's important to point out is the fact that the COVID panic bottom did not come near the bottom of the bear market in 2018. Okay, so after that point, it recovers a little bit. You hit your Bitcoin halving, and then the Bitcoin halving in conjunction with the already very low interest rates sent investors into a buying spree, right? They took on more risk and they decided to push Bitcoin up to new heights. And then you're talking about, 63,000 or so in that range. It pulled back a little bit. You go here to the new high of 70,000 in November, right? That was the top of the recent bull market. And then you see what happens here is Bitcoin fails a little bit. It fades just a little bit. The Fed rapidly starts raising rates. And then you see this huge dump off happen. Okay, so when the Fed was raising rates, Bitcoin was still up in 46,000 range. And then as soon as they raised rates, it dumped off hard. Okay, so it came all the way back down here. Now we're at about 20,000 or so. So what I want you to take away from this is the fact that the Fed's action has a market impact on the Bitcoin price. Generally speaking, when the Fed raises rates rapidly, it's not good for Bitcoin. And these rapid raises often precede a massive collapse in the Bitcoin price like we saw in 2018 and like we're seeing right now. Now, when the Fed decides to stop raising rates, that is usually about when the bear market actually bottoms, okay? So that's what we saw in 2018. In fact, it was within about a week or so. And then when the Fed starts decreasing rates, you can see that decreased rates are actually good for Bitcoin, despite the fact that we see this COVID panic happen here. If the COVID panic hadn't happened, Bitcoin probably would have wound up trading sideways for those couple of months, and then it would have hit the halving and gone on a massive run. Okay, so we have two very important events coming up here, and I've marked this out just as a very, very, very general kind of way I see things playing out. Now, again, this is me looking into the future a couple of years. I wouldn't take this as financial advice. This is just if I'm looking into things and seeing if we come anywhere close to repeating the same sort of cycle. So, from my sources, what I can tell, there are a lot of there's a lot of speculation about when the Fed will stop raising rates. But me personally, I think that they're going to probably stop raising rates in January of 23. And the reason for that is based on the jobs report that we've got lately and the consumer price index information that we've got lately, I believe that inflation has peaked, okay? And if inflation has actually, in fact, peaked, then what we would see is 6 months down the road from inflation peaking, in about January or so, that's when the Fed would probably decide to stop raising rates. And this is only if inflation gets under control. Now, this date in January, it's kind of fluid. It can be January. It can maybe wind up being like March or April, something like that. I don't see it happening before then, but it's entirely possible. Now, what's also really important is to consider is when the Fed's going to start decreasing rates. Now, a lot of analysts are coming out and saying, and I've looked at some various sources, but they're saying that they expect the market is pricing in for the Fed to be decreasing rates sometime next year in 2023. So I kind of split the difference. I said, well, we'll do it in July. Okay, July, could be August, September, somewhere around that range. And if the US economy is in a depression at the time or a recession, then the Fed will have to start decreasing rates in order to get the US out of a recession. Now, that's only if inflation gets under control, but I think by then inflation will be under control. So you have thing one, you have the first part of a bear market, and that's the Fed decreasing rates, and then you get to the second part of of the next bull market, right? So first part is the Fed decreasing rates. The second part is your Bitcoin halving, and I've talked about this before in a separate video, but I expect the Bitcoin halving will happen in, let's say, I've seen estimates ranging from March to April, in that time frame, but I've kind of approximated it here a little bit. But you have the Fed decreasing rates combined in conjunction with the Bitcoin halving. I think Bitcoin's going to wind up pushing up even higher. That's going to be the start of the new bull market. Okay, and it actually fits in pretty nicely with Bitcoin cycles because I've said previously that Bitcoin tends to bottom out. Go ahead and go back to my video here. So Bitcoin tends to bottom out between 400 and 600 days, and I estimated that around January 2023 is when the bottoming will happen. or slightly before then, somewhere in that range. Again, I'm kind of forecasting out here a little bit. All right. So when this Bitcoin halving happens, after that point, we're going to see the start of the bull market. Now, the market may not catch on. We might actually go sideways for a bit. We might actually go down for a little bit. But the way I see it is in 2024 and 2025, Bitcoin is going to be taking off and making new highs. Okay, and again, this is very, very broad, and I'm having to make a lot of assumptions here about this, but this is kind of following the traditional, both the Bitcoin cycle, and it's following the historical price action that we've seen based on what the Fed has done and Bitcoin's reactions to the Fed raising or lowering interest rates. So if you back it out a little bit, I mean, it follows the trend. It follows the same kind of trend that we've seen so far, and then you can see that I'm expecting Bitcoin to hit new all-time high by 2024, 2025, or something like that. So how I'm positioning myself to take advantage of this is that I am continuing my DCA Bitcoin buys and also selected altcoins. But for now, Bitcoin is number one on my shopping list. Okay. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. If you like this content, please let me know. I put together this wonderful chart here to kind of map things out a little bit. And if you're very interested in the other videos that I've done, I also recommend checking out that Bitcoin halving video that I did. That also plays a nice part in with this. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. This is Cody the Coin Raptor, signing out.